You know, every time I keep saying I'm leaving, somebody comes up with something to make me have to make another video, so that's why this picture slapped on. This one will be real short. It's a question to you guys. Do you need me or want me to do a video exposing the nutcases who claim that Paul is a false apostle? In the video description, there is a video by one of these nutcases. And if you watch the first 30-40 seconds of the video, you'll find that he makes the nutcase example of trying to claim Paul is contradicting Christ by comparing Romans 14:9 to Luke 20:38. What he conveniently neglects to do, as all apostate liars neglect to do, is he conveniently neglects to explain what Luke 20:37 says. So go look at it right now. Pause, hit the pause button, go look. Now, Luke 20:37 is about three dead guys: Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. In 2 chapters over, in Luke 22, you're going to see Abraham talking while Abraham is under the earth in paradise at that time. Christ hadn't gone to the cross yet, so Christ hadn't risen yet, so paradise was still occupied with all the Old Testament believers. And below paradise is this compartment called torments. That's all explained in Luke 22. Christ is anticipating all that in Luke 20:37 and 38. In Luke 20:37, he's talking about 3 dead guys. So in Luke 20:38, he's saying that he's going to save those dead guys, who are obviously still living in Luke 22 because they're talking. Christ is saying in Luke 20:38, he's going to save those dead guys so that even while they're dead, they're living. So that's why he says, so very ironically, God is not the God of the dead, but the living. Now when Christ says that, he's quoting the Old Testament. If you look up the same phrase in the Old Testament, you'll see that God uses that. Christ actually is talking in the Old Testament, that he's saying, hi, I'm not the God of the dead, but the living. It's a frequent refrain in the Old Testament. Now, the Anti-Pauline people conveniently neglect to show all that. They also conveniently neglect to mention, which any schoolboy knows, that Luke was Paul's best friend. Luke was the only guy who stayed with Paul at the end. Everybody else deserted Paul. That's at the end of 2 Timothy. So in Romans 14:9, which is written after Luke's gospel, Paul is quoting Luke 20:37 and 38. And he's making a play on the irony of it by saying he's the God of the dead and the living. Yeah, because Abraham is dead and yet living. Dead, his body is in the grave. Living because, hello, in Luke 22, he's still talking in paradise. Okay? So he got a new body in paradise or he wouldn't have a mouth to talk. Duh. So he's both dead and living. And that's the play on words that Paul is making in Romans 14:9. Context starts in Romans 14:7. And of course, you got the earlier Gospel of Matthew. That's the parallel passage to all this in Luke. And Paul is therefore also quoting the Old Testament refrain about how God is not the God of the dead, but the living. So see, he's simultaneously the God of the dead and the living, and simultaneously the God not of the dead, but of the living. Because if Christ paid for you and you believe in him, you're alive even if you die. That's the example of Lazarus, okay, which is going to come in Luke, between Luke 20 and 22. Okay. Now, the Anti-Pauline people conveniently neglect to do their homework on these topics. And they just take Romans 14:9 and Luke 20:38 as if it was a contradiction, ignoring all what I just said, which any schoolboy can find in the Bible. You don't even need to know the Greek. But it helps to know the Greek, because the Greek word for dead is nekros, and it means dead body. In English, that survives as a medical term. It's called necrotic death. Go look up necrotic, Nekrotic. That's a medical term in today's English, because it comes from the Greek word nekros, which means dead body. And Luke, of course, would know that because Luke was a physician. So, ask yourself and tell me, do you want me to rebut these stupid people? Because you have to be insane to be anti-Paul. Now, the insane Anti-Pauline people started out in the 1st century. In Acts 15, they called themselves the Sicarii. That means assassins. And today they call themselves by various names. They're all over the place now, like cockroaches. One group is called the Ebionites. There are 2 different groups that are called Ebionites. They're not necessarily the same. Okay, they're out to kill Paul because they didn't succeed at killing him 2,000 years ago, and they've been trying to kill him ever since without success. Now, do you guys want me to do videos against these stupid people? Or do you see it clearly enough for yourself based on what I just said? Let me know.